click refresh. Okay. There's a latency. Oh, look away.
Getting things up and running. Running. Or not. Just sitting here. Just hoping something happens. What's going to happen? Don't really know. Got some latency issues here. Latency. That's what we want. That's what we're working on. Hey, Master. Okay. All right. I think we're going. I'm waiting for the go ahead from my producer. What's that? Yeah. Comments going. Okay. All right. Well, just let me know if we're not going.
Where do you see
the comments were coming over here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so over here.
Just leave it then too. I mean, otherwise we pop it out. You have to move the chat again.
So I'll just do comments here. Right?
Then everyone's gonna see it. Well, unless you have the screen on you.
No, let's go screen over here. How do I get this one back?
I think you gotta pop chat back out again.
Which
so
is
over here. Oh, okay.
There it is. Okay.
Let's just start going.
All right. We're gonna go. All right, so I'm not gonna worry about that. How is everybody doing? So this is the second or third time I'm going to do this format. We're going to do 4 main stories. So it'll be hour and a half, 2-hour long live stream. We may get cut off. Don't know. We're still working through all the glitches on streaming live and doing all that good stuff. So what I'll do is I'll read through these stories. And at the end of each story, I'll kind of glance over and look at the comments and see what you guys are talking about, see what you guys are interested in, and we'll go from there. And one of the ways that, so there's going to be a bunch of comments that go through on the live chat. If you do just like a super small super chat, it puts that comment, and I'll read that comment. So if you are dying to get me a comment, and maybe I miss it as the comments go through, super chat is the way to do that. I'm not trying to beg for money here, but that's a mechanism, and YouTube does it on purpose. All right. Chief Diaz, he's our new police chief. He's our new Seattle police chief. He took over for Carmen Best, who basically said, yep, you're defending our police department. I'm out of here. You guys can take your little job and shove it. So she did that. Chief Diaz has been our interim police chief for a couple of years. I always jokingly refer to him as permanent interim police chief Diaz, because he was our interim police chief for so long. He got sworn in this last weekend, and did we have a doozy for crime here in Seattle? You know, when you're like having a decent weekend, and I was either on my boat or paddleboarding. I know, middle of January in Seattle, not ideal paddleboarding conditions, but it hit almost 60 degrees on Saturday. So I was, paddleboarding, running around, and then I checked my phone and I go, oh, geez, another shooting. Good Lord. And a teriyaki owner got killed. Somebody got hit in the head and then drove their car into a power station. What is going on? We had one of those kind of weekends. That's what our first story is going to be here. Diaz oversees violent weekend. His first official one as Seattle Police Department chief. I think Chief Diaz has done a good job. My policing isn't. If I became police chief, it would be a wreck. It'd be a total wreck because I don't know how to manage. I know how to manage business, but public safety, little different drill. So Chief Diaz coming into a big city like Seattle with just the chaos we had with Chop Chaz and all this other stuff. And now you got these levels of shootings alone that have escalated pretty heavily. After a weekend of shootings alongside a narcotics bust, multiple assaults, hate crimes, and even a power outage affecting 8,000 residents, many people who call Seattle home are worried about 2023's violent start. That was kind of my thought. I was like, oh, well, maybe this is a one-off. Maybe this is just that weekend. Maybe they're getting it out of their system, and these criminals and these people who aren't able to interact well together, maybe, they're getting it out of their system early in the year. Nah, this is just what's going on, right? I mean, this is kind of unfortunately where we're at. We had a violent weekend, even by Seattle standards, for what we've been seeing over the past 2 years. And the rise in violent crime and shootings and homicides, said Brandi Kruse, said on KIRO Newsradio. Yeah, that was my thought. And, crime levels kind of go in these waves. What we're seeing in Seattle is we're seeing a mayor and we are seeing some of the council members, Seattle City Council members, trying to combat this, but it's an uphill battle. And at the end of the day, with all the homeless encampments and all the drugs coming into Seattle and the way that we basically handle it, it's not a winning battle. It's not a winning battle. So you've got these points in time where you're like, oh, geez, that is not good. This is not good stuff. This is not the way we want things to go, but this is how it is. And that's what I'm doing, is basically just saying, hey, here's the deal. This is what you got. This is what you're working with. Make that vote count. If you want to see something different, make that vote count. Make a change to who you support politically. That's the only thing that really matters, right? And so many folks, go, oh, I bet that shop owner that got in trouble for hosing down the homeless person, I bet they voted Democrat. Yeah, maybe they did. And that's the whole point. If you want to see a change in violent crime, if you want to see a change in the way the homelessness or drugs are handled or any of that good stuff, do your part. Cast that ballot. Except we don't cast ballot anymore, do we? Here in Washington, we mail it in. Yeah. Well, 2022 was a more violent year, according to Seattle Police Department's crime dashboard. January 2021 saw 42 shootings, while January 2022 witnessed 65. Here we go. A man shot to death inside a restaurant. 3 people shot outside of a popular bar in Capitol Hill. A guy shot after he was asked for a cigarette by a stranger in Seattle. A guy sitting in his truck shot with a grazing bullet to the head in Seattle. All right, that's 4 right there. Let's take a look at those individually, okay? First one was, a guy shot at a restaurant. So here we go. Seattle police investigating after a man shot and killed in a robbery at restaurant in Mount Baker. So what we had, this is a Fox article. And this is Fox. No, this is KIRO. This is KIRO Local. So we had 3 individuals break into Rainier Teriyaki. That is in the Rainier area. It's the Mount Baker area of Seattle. It's south. Is it south of I-90? South of 520, north of I-90. It's in that area. And the robbers came in, and the owner, teriyaki owner, took a bullet to the chest and didn't make it. So this is a small business guy running a teriyaki shop with his family. His daughter is known. It's kind of piecing together some of these things. Police said the shooting happened Saturday at around 8:30 p.m. inside Rainier Teriyaki on the corner of Rainier Avenue South. Rainier Avenue South is a major north-south thoroughfare, and it serves a big community. After gathering more information, it appears it was a robbery in progress, and during that robbery, one of the suspects ended up shooting one of our victims. Officers found a man with a gunshot wound to the chest. He was taken to Harborview Medical Center, where he died from his injuries. Diaz said they were looking for 3 suspects. What's crazy is how how few people actually give up information now, right? It used to be, well, I saw a guy doing this. Now everybody knows, don't say a word, otherwise they will come for you. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Right now, it appears that the suspect had their face covered, Chief Diaz said. It's concerning because if they can do that on the other side, they can also easily walk over like 2 or 3 steps over to our side. And luckily it didn't happen. And this is another business talking that's in close proximity to this one. The woman who wanted to remain anonymous said she didn't hear the gunfire, but given the response from police, she knew it was something serious. Yeah, owner of a business gets capped because somebody is probably coming in to steal what, couple $100 in cash? Something crazy like that. Second story. 3 injured in drive-by shooting at 10th and Pike, and second weekend of Capitol Hill nightlife gun violence. All right, this one is 1 block due south of Cal Anderson Park. That is the Chop Chaz Park, right? It's where all the demonstrations happened. Everybody had their, moment of glory with the whole Summer of Love, which, that didn't end up that well, right? This didn't really work out all that well. But what we've got here is a drive-by shooting at 10th and Pike that sent 3 victims to the hospital in the second weekend in a row of nightlife gun violence on Capitol Hill. This is what a lot of kids are talking about. And when I say kids, I mean millennials. Second weekend, okay, yeah. Do you want to go out and you want to hit the bars at Capitol Hill? You want to hit the nightlife at Capitol Hill? Well, I mean, maybe we just stay home. Kids, they kind of do that whole thing where they just go and they don't worry about it. But this is kind of some of the stuff that's coming up, is that you've got active shootings happening. You've got active shootings. So Seattle police reported 3 men in their late 20s were hit and injured in their early Saturday morning drive-by, reported just after 12:30 a.m. Nothing good happens after like 9 o'clock, does it? Especially after midnight and especially after 2 a.m. There's nothing good that happens. It's just craziness, right? I mean, when's the last time you heard of something really fantastic happening at 1:30 in the morning? Doesn't happen, right? I mean, it's like maybe somebody is saved from some kind of crazy crime. At least 2 of the victims were reported down in front of the Comet Tavern on the northeast side of the intersection, while nearby Poquitos and multiple vehicles reportedly suffered bullet damage, including a car parked on the southeast side of East Pike. So you got just basically a shooting. You got a big shooting going on during nightlife on a, what was this Saturday? This was Friday, Saturday morning. So Friday night, early Saturday morning. Okay, so that's your second big one here. Seattle man shot when asked for a cigarette. Asked for a cigarette. Hey, you got to smoke? And then it goes downhill from there, right? And you're kind of like, what in the world is going on? A man walking in the 200 block of 20th Avenue South near Pratt Park in Seattle. This is in the central area. This is north of I-90, a little bit to the north and east of Yesler kind of area. Not far from the teriyaki restaurant, kind of same general area. Man near Pratt Park in Seattle was shot when he asked for a cigarette. Seattle police reported they contacted a 19-year-old man with a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to his hand just after midnight when he walked into Harborview Medical Center. The male victim reported being driven to the hospital from where the shooting occurred. According to the victim, a man walked up to him asking if he had a cigarette. When he said no, the man then asked what else the victim had on him, because I'm going to rob you. And then he pulled out a black handgun. Seeing the gun, the victim shoved the suspect and ran. The victim heard 2 gunshots and dove to the ground, knocking himself unconscious in the process. He woke to find his shoes were missing. So you got a concussion. You got a hand that's been mildly grazed, just a flesh wound there. More importantly, got no shoes. Tells you what people are willing to do. They are willing to do the craziest stuff for a pair of used shoes. Maybe they're $100 shoes. I don't know. Retail, are they 30, 30, what are you going to get for them? $30? They're used. Maybe there's some really nice Nikes, couple $100. But I mean, you're literally, okay, I need a smoke. You don't have one? All right, I'm just going to shoot you. And then when you go down after knocking yourself out, I'm just going to take your shoes. Police searched near Pratt Park, but did not locate the shooting scene or any possible suspects because they're long gone. The investigation is ongoing. So, of all these incidents, you know what happens? We don't have enough police manpower to really investigate any of this stuff. So it just keeps happening. We just don't have the bandwidth. And we're going to talk about that in one of these news stories here. I'm going to finish up the Seattle stuff. But LA's thin blue line flag ban, they're cutting out the thin blue line down in LA. It spurs outrage amid recruitment struggles because nobody wants to be a cop in this day and age. And so, you've just got some crazy stuff going on. And you've got this whole thing where you don't have enough police in most major metropolitan cities. Some are well funded. Shouldn't say that. But, West Coast, vast majority of police districts are undermanned, underwomaned, whatever you want to say. All right. So here's our fourth story that happened this past weekend in Seattle. Man with a minor gunshot wound and a power outage after shooting near New Holly neighborhood. Seattle police responded to a report of a damaged city light equipment, but instead located a man with a minor gunshot wound to his head in the 3900 block of South Warsaw Street near New Holly neighborhood Saturday evening. So it's, our last guy had a minor flesh wound to the hand. This guy's he took one to the noggin, took one to the head. That's a little too close for comfort for me. I mean, you can take a shot right through your hand. Like that teacher, the 6-year-old kid who just pulled out a gun and boom, shot her. She apparently held up her hand and bullet went through her hand and then into her chest. You can take one with the hand, but right through the head, not so much. Not as good. Police arrived just after 7 p.m. and contacted a man with a gunshot graze wound to his head. That dude is lucky. That guy is lucky. The male victim was in his vehicle when several shots were fired from another vehicle that drove into the area. In response, the victim drove off to escape further injury and collided with a power pole. Fragments or debris from gunfire reportedly struck an underground Seattle City light conduit, causing a brief power outage in the area. 8,000 people lost their power. You got a shooting, whether the guy drove into the pole, you got the conduit thing, 8,000 people were without power because we got such violence going on in Seattle. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, that's a fun story. Said nobody. People want to keep their power on. They don't want to have their neighbors just shooting each other willy-nilly. There were no suspects located, but a sport utility vehicle possibly involved was last seen eastbound on South Warsaw Street. So if you've seen a sport utility vehicle with, driving away, yeah, right, this is going nowhere. Officers provided medical aid until Seattle Fire Department personnel responded and transported the victim to Harborview. Everybody goes to Harborview because that's kind of where our trauma center. Gun Violence Reduction Unit will be investigating the ongoing case. You've got too much criminal activity going, don't have enough cops. This is what you get, right? This is what you get. So let's get back to the main article here. And Brandi Kruse, we had a 16-year-old boy shot in Tacoma. This is after the 4 stories I just read to you. 2 teenage girls shot outside a Mount Vernon grocery store in the parking lot. Mount Vernon is way up north, kind of by Canada. Just a few of the things that happened, and I shouldn't say Canada. It's on your way on the I-5 up to Canada. Just a few of the things that happened in the past few days in Western Washington. Like I said, it was just one of those weekends. All this occurred on Adrian Diaz's first official week as chief of police for Seattle. So chief of police isn't responsible for Mount Vernon and a bunch of other stuff going on, but it's like collectively all part of the Pacific Northwest experience, right? Diaz was the interim chief for 2 years following former Police Chief Carmen Best's resignation in August 2020, and he was confirmed by the Seattle City Council with an 8-1 vote. He's been a cop for a long time, and he's been with Seattle for a long time. The only no vote came from council member Shama Sawant, and she just doesn't like police at all. Just get rid of them. It'll be fine. We'll make our own way. We'll have social workers go out and handle all these calls. It'll be fine. Nothing wrong. It'll just happen. For me, the violence is bad. Combating violent crime is getting more officers on the streets, Diaz said on KIRO Newsradio with Brandi Kruse. I mean, simple fact, we need officers to be in the right place at the right time. I think in the last 5 months, we have seen a decline. We've adjusted our resources. All right. So when police chiefs say that, they mean they've only got so many. Their bandwidth is only so wide. They're taking somebody from over here and moving them to over here. They're spreading their personnel thin because you've only got so many people in the rotation lineup anyway, right? We've adjusted our resources, but we've also had our officers working multiple shifts that are working emphasis. They're working anything from downtown emphasis, that's the Pike and Pine and 3rd, and there was a major drug bust there over the weekend. Yep, a bunch of crack cocaine found there. So we've got the downtown emphasis to gun violence emphasis, and we're spreading them out really, really thin. Yeah. And that's not a long-term deal. You can't run your business, and policing is no different than any other business. You can't run your business on, overtime. Just not going to happen. And when you have that one big incident happen, that's when the wheels are going to come off, and you're going to have to call in officers from all over to make it go. And it's really going to shed a light on, okay, this is the number of cops we've got. We need all hands on deck, and you're just simply not going to have enough. And you're going to have to recruit, officers in all kinds of different jurisdictions to make it go. So then this article goes on to say that adding an additional police officer to a city prevents between 0.06 and 0.1 homicides. So between 0.6% and 0.1% homicides. Based on the data, the average city would need to hire between 10 and 17 new police officers to save one life a year, which would cost taxpayers annually between 1.3 and 2.2 million. But then the federal government says that life is worth $10 million. And we'll often see a multiple $1 million payout on a wrongful death lawsuit by a city, right? I think the Breonna Taylor with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was that payout? How much was that? I want to say that payout was like $3 million, something like that. So they don't have to go to court, don't have to do that kind of the whole deal. So violent weekend in Seattle. And you might say, you might be somewhere else where it's even more violent. All right. And then you might also say, it's not that bad. I mean, that's, a handful of shootings. Guy got his hand grazed. Somebody took one to the dome. Yeah. It doesn't feel settling. It doesn't feel settling. It's kind of like, this isn't the direction we want to go. And this isn't even talking about all the other craziness happening out there. We've got homeless encampment sweeps. We've got cars being broken into, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think vast majority of people here in Seattle just have their head in the sand. You're just like, no, this is just what we signed up for. We like it this way. It's all okay. But then there's some of the folks, some of the business owners, they're the ones on the front lines of all this criminal activity because they're getting broken into repeatedly. Just reading a news story where somebody is saying, I've had to make my 4th claim on insurance this year. I don't know how many more times they're going to renew me. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's a concern as well, because they're probably not. I mean, you make one claim on a commercial insurance claim, they're going to double, triple your premium. And then you make a couple more. You're not going to have an insurance company. They're going to be like, oh, sorry, you're in Seattle? No go. Sorry, you're in Portland? No go. Sorry, you're in downtown San Fran? No go. You're close to, the Castro. You're close to wherever. Close to Skid Row. No, we're probably not going to do a policy for you. That's outside of our comfort zone. We're not going there. So those are some of the things that are going on. You get the business owners bitching about it. And I actually had not bitching, but bringing it to attention because this is an ongoing major issue for them, just trying to stay in business. I covered the gallery owner down in San Francisco who took a hose to a crazy homeless person outside of his art gallery. And people are just all worked up. But vast majority of you that saw the podcast that I did are like, yeah, where has been the compassion for the business owner having to work his way through all the craziness that comes in between his customers and his shop by all these homeless folks lining the sidewalk? Where's the compassion for that business owner? We don't have any. We've given that away. We've just said, well, this is the road we're going to go down. We're going to love our fellow human being in a tent so much that we're going to allow them to basically die before they're 50, because that statistically is somewhere 48, 50, 51 is how long you're going to last in encampment in Seattle or any other major city. About 25, 26 years less than if you're in typical housed environment. Drugs. Got some crazy drugs going on, and that is what's fueling a lot of this here too. Is you've got a criminal element out there that knows that they're going to get away with a lot of these robberies, and you've got people that know there aren't enough cops. And clearly, we just read the stories. Has anybody been apprehended? No, the cops are running too hard. Nobody wants to talk. There's no information. So expect, more of the same. That's just kind of where we're at with this storyline. And yes, we need more cops, but that's a tough sell. It's a tough sell, especially in Seattle, where you've got housing prices that are so expensive. And just for young people starting out, a crappy one bedroom goes for $1,500 a month on top of expensive utilities and all that good stuff. It's expensive to live here. And so you take a job as a police officer, you're either going to have to commute way in from somewhere far out, or you're going to have to live in an urban setting where you already work, and that's not exactly desirable either. Times have changed, right? Times have changed. All right, let's move on to our second story, Segunda. Okay, I'm going to take a quick peek at the comments here. All right, so I need to renew my live chat. Okay, I'm going to move on to Los Angeles Police Department's thin blue line flag is banned. LA, they're banning the thin blue line flag. It spurs outrage amid recruitment struggles. Morale is in the gutter. These are things that we already know. Police departments across the United States, like I just talked about in that last segment, they're already at all-time lows as far as their ability to recruit, their ability to bring new blood into the program. The Los Angeles Police Department banned the flag from public display at departments after a complaint. After a single complaint. What is wrong with people? The thin blue flag, the thin blue line flag, that to me represents officers that have had their lives taken in the line of duty. That's the way I envision it. And I envision it as a symbol for police officers, and a symbol, to me, it's a symbol of that. Not only that, but it's also a symbol of the thin blue line separating chaos from order. You might not see it that way, but if you didn't have cops, we've already seen, I just talked about it in that last segment, the chaos that happens when you've got a police department that can't cover everything. I'm not saying those incidents wouldn't have happened, but when you've got more cops on the streets, you tend to quell some of this violence, right? But there's a thing going on right now, especially in these West Coast cities, where people are just going ham. That's the bottom line. People are just going ham, doing crazy stuff, right? Okay. Where was I here? Still going. Okay, let me get rid of this. And I haven't been hitting the screen time. There we go. Los Angeles Police Department is facing fierce criticism after it banned displaying the thin blue line flag over a complaint it symbolized extremist views. Is this extremist views, the thin blue line flag? No. And if one single group puts that flag up, Does that change the meaning of the flag? No, it doesn't. And yet that's the level that we're stooping to at this point, right? So founder of Blue Lives Matter, New York City, Joseph Impentris, joined Fox and Friends First Monday to discuss why he is furious over the move and how it will impact staffing shortages and morale moving forward. Right now in policing and in public safety, you can't afford this. You can't afford to go down these roads because you've already got a deficit of so many cops. When people make a complaint like that, they don't like the cops on any given day. So we got to take that into account. Impentris told co-host Todd Pirro. For the police chief to take it down, it kind of makes the other side think that there's actually something wrong with that flag. It's an optics thing, isn't it? Oh, they took it down. That means there's something going on there, which we know there's not. We know there's not. But some people just don't like anything to do with cops. They don't like anything to do with law and order. They want to abolish the whole system. They want to get rid of everything. But then on the other breath, to tell your police officers on the other side of this wall, you can hang it on your locker or on your vehicles. There's nothing wrong with the flag. So internally, you've got one policy. Externally, no, you can't raise that. You can't have that. You can have that here in the locker room, but you can't have it anywhere else. So how's that work? It's just crazy, isn't it? Okay. What really bothers cops is that, God forbid, a police officer was killed in one of those jurisdictions today or tomorrow. I can guarantee you that not only flowers and candles would be placed there, but all different types of blue lines, whether it's flags or stickers or cups. But it's okay, he continued. It's not all right. We need to stand up for our cops. We should have left it there. So whoever in Los Angeles went down this road, you are not really paying attention to what's going on. Because your city, you don't have enough cops to begin with. This makes it just that much more worse, because you are basically taking an identification and saying, no, this isn't good. We can't have this. And you're taking something that has been put out there, police, that's one of the few symbols that they can have that really represents their unity and their, the thin blue line, the line between chaos and order. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. And we saw what happened after police departments got defunded. We saw the chaos that happened when you basically take away police officers' ability to do their job. We're watching that unfold in front of us, in communities where we've done this, Seattle being one. You've got craziness going on and people know they can get away with it. So why wouldn't they do this stuff? The department banned the use of the thin blue line flag from public areas within police departments last week over a single complaint tying the flag to the Proud Boys and other groups. So you got one complaint. And it just gets shut down. So how does that work out? How does that go? Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, it makes no sense, but today's day and age, somebody's like, oh no, can't be affiliated with the Proud Boys. I mean, what if the Proud Boys waved, I don't know, the Black Lives Matter flag? Would we ban that as well? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, really? Is this what you're doing? And so what if the Proud Boys support police? All right, so you take some of their ideology that you don't like. They have a right to support law and order as well, right? I mean, how are we getting so far out of line here? Despite the ban, officers will still be allowed to hang the symbol above their workspace locker door or personal vehicle. This is where you're just, this makes no sense at all, right? Moore defended the ban, releasing a statement on Friday saying it's unfortunate that extremist groups have hijacked the use of the thin blue line flag to symbolize their undemocratic, racist, and bigoted views. Have they? You got one comment and you're going to take the thin blue line flag away from those that actually have a right to wear it and present it? That makes absolutely no sense to me. See, you got some racist and bigoted view. If you think that's what the Proud Boys are, okay. if you're going down that road, all right. But the actual people who this is representing, that's not what they're about. And that's not what the thin blue line flag is all about, right? So how is a police chief getting so off center here? No, we can't have that. I mean, are we going to have any symbols left at all after some of this stuff is done? It's hard to say, isn't it? Critics have been quick to point out the potential impact the ban will have on already existent recruitment and retention struggles as crime surges. There were only 22 recruits in the LAPD's most recent recruitment class, and the department is even looking to retired officers to satisfy the shortage. Okay, so we've seen how that works down in Portland. They've called for, all hands on deck. You're not going to get enough cops coming out of retirement. You need to renew that blood. You got to recruit new people in. And if you're in a job environment where they're saying, nope, yeah, we're not doing the thin blue line flag, but I mean, internally you guys can, but externally, that's not something that we're proud of. That's one of the few symbols, I think, in law enforcement that everybody knows and recognizes and can get behind. Just because somebody else who you think might have a different ideal, politically than you, they also run it. I'm a hard no-go on this one. Hard no-go. So, yeah. So the thin blue line is the only thing separating the darkness and the chaos. So every once in a while, it's nice, or would be nice, as an executive at a police department around the nation just stood up and just explained it a little bit more, because morale's in the gutter. Nationwide, very difficult to recruit police officers. 10 years ago, wildly different story. You might have a 3.6 GPA coming out of a big school like University of Washington. You might have studied criminology. You might have studied sociology, whatever it is that gets you that straight line into the police force. You might test 2, 3, 4 times, spend a couple of years of your life trying to get on with the police force. It was that competitive. This isn't that long ago. And now, and that might even be like 8 years ago. And now they're getting recruits in, but it's not at the rate that they need to. And this last class down in LA with 22 recruits, I mean, that's shocking to say it at least, right? So it's hard. It's a hard retention rate, and we can't recruit people. So why are people going to want to stay if their executives are not standing up for them? Good point. I mean, that's an amazing point. Why would they do that? It makes no sense, does it? And that's not what's happening. You're seeing numbers of police officers being reduced continuously. And you've got big operations like Seattle saying, yeah, we want to hire 500 cops in the next 5 years. They all want to hire more police because we know that we're shy of the number of police officers to keep the city safe. And yet there's no ability to bring the recruits in at the rate that you need them to. And down in Portland, it's even worse. I mean, it's even worse. Basically a news stat goes out when there's 16 recruits brought in, and you're like, okay, but how many did you lose? Because you can bring 500 in, but if you lose 300 due to attrition, because nobody wants to be a cop anymore, so you've got a net positive of 200, and you're already down 500, 600, whatever it is that Seattle's down, whatever it is that Portland's down. And you will hear one side of the news bringing that up fairly often. It's a very small minority, but for the vast majority, of the media, they just don't pay any attention to it because a lot of people just don't care. They're like, it's fine. It's okay, until their car gets broken into and they've got to call 911. And where are you? How come you can't come out faster? You're not going to follow up on my car crime? What's going on? Yeah. So you've got all that happening, right? According to LAPD, around 200 retired officers are being asked to return to the department, as another 600 are expected to leave or retire. I had heard a big number were going to leave Portland as well, or were eligible to leave, I think last July. A bunch of them stayed on. That's kind of my rudimentary understanding. You've got 600 expected to leave or retire. How big is the police force in LA? I know in cities like Chicago and cities like New York, massive. I mean, you could have, 16,000 police officers, but you've also got a population of how many million? Whereas in Seattle, you've got, what do you have? Do you have 600 officers, 700 officers, but a population of 750,000 people, something like that? So yeah, it's it's a sad situation for these people trying to bring cops in because it's not working. And it will not work. It's just not happening. Okay. Getting back to my story here. Sorry about that. And this isn't happening. This isn't happening just, here in LA. It's not here in LA, but down in LA. This is happening all over the nation, Impetra said. It's not just happening in LA. Policing, it's one of those dying breeds. When cops are afraid to go out there and put their hands on somebody because there is someone that committed a crime and be afraid that maybe the next day they're going to be a headline on the front page or paper, we have to change the narrative. Only way you're going to change that narrative is if you change some of the laws and you give back the ability to police the way that they used to. You've basically tied the police officers' hands, and that's why you've got criminal activity. We didn't even get into, hijackings or carjackings and how that's just skyrocketed and all those other crimes that are going on out there. We haven't even touched on that, but those are going through the roof as well, right? So we need the community and our executives and all the high brass to stand behind their cops and say, if you go out there and do policing to the best of your ability and don't do anything criminal and genuinely you want to help, the public will stand behind you. But if you do cross that line, we're going to go after you because you need to be held to a higher standard, he continued. I think the real issue has been that cops have been gone after for basically following protocol. And yet there's such public sentiment that, we're just going to jump on the cop. And here's a good example. How many grand juries have you seen where they exonerate the cop for basically following protocol, following what they're supposed to do, following training, and there's somebody shot and killed? If you start looking at those actual stories of what's going on, you're like, oh, well, I mean, that does make a lot of sense. If you read the headline, cop shoots unarmed, homeless, mentally unstable individual, your optics are just terrible. But what they don't say is, well, that guy did have a knife and he threatened to stab somebody else. And then he lunged at a police officer. Those are real stories that have happened here in Seattle. And I cover those fairly often. A lot of them I cover on our member content. I cover on reasonabletv.com because those storylines are inherently a little bit violent. So we've got member content on this channel that, you're not going to find elsewhere. So it's $10 a month. If you believe in what I do, you want to support me, go ahead, get yourself a subscription for reasonabletv.com. Got a bunch of additional videos you're not going to find elsewhere. Because we're not able to put those elsewhere because they violate the terms of service. Okay. So attorney Keisha Hebben is married to, okay, now we're not going to cover that. So we've basically talked about LA and the Thin Blue Line and their executives in the police department saying, the Proud Boys like it too. So we're not going to do that. So I bet you there's some real pushback on this. I bet you LA police officers do have the ability, pretty sure they're going to walk this backwards because if this goes forward, other police forces are going to, glom onto it. And I'm a hard no-go on this one. I just am. This makes no sense at all. This is just cowering to those who don't know any better, that just can't filter through. Okay, this group, their affiliation. All right. So you got to be able to work things out in your own head, what you believe and what you support. And if you can't do that, I can't help you. You know what I mean? You got to figure stuff out for yourself. So many of these these political factors. They just kind of want to jump on in. Oh, they flew the flag, therefore it's got to be terrible and horrible. Just not the case. Not the case. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. Give me 1 second, and I will be right back. Thank you. All right. Going to look at your chats. I lost the feed on the chats. That sucks. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Let's see what we've got going on here. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Greetings from Palm Desert, California. Palm Desert. What's your weather like there? Bet you it's warmer than here, for sure. Good afternoon. Hey, Solemn. Is the desert better for science? Yeah. Hello from Missouri. Hey, Missouri. That's far. You guys got a lot of topics going on here. Keep them going. Yeah. And with the defund the police, who wants to become a police officer? Nobody. People don't want to become cops. They read all, I mean, you guys have been here. They don't want to become, you've got the cops who are in it for life, right? They're already there. But new people, they don't want to work like that and have their lives put on the line. It's a super small percentage of young people that are willing to go into the profession. So you've got storylines like the one I just read where like, nope, the one thing you should have pride in, we're going to take that away from you. So it's kind of like, how does that work? It's not good, right? It's not good for morale. Put more social workers on the street. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Let's see social workers on the street. I'm sure that'll work out, right? Darn, I'm late. It's all right, Dan S, because we're going to go for a while, so it's okay. You can always, on these live streams, you can always take that little red dot and move it all the way to the left and start from scratch. Or you can just watch what I'm doing and play catch up later, because these are always all out there. And these will also be cut up into individual little segments as well. So you've got 4 segments. If you missed one, you could always just go back and take a peek. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's what this feels, right? This is a tiny little squeaky wheel. It's like, the Proud Boys. Everybody mentions the Proud Boys. It's like everybody they get all worked up. The Proud Boys. I don't really pay a lot of attention to the Proud. I'm sorry, I just don't. There's a lot of factors out there, a lot of factions out there I don't pay attention to because it's not really in my wheelhouse. That's not really my thing. When they do a march or they do a parade, I'll follow that. I'll follow somebody who's live tweeting from doing that. And it's like, okay, vast majority of the time, they're just kind of doing their own thing. And it's just kind of a non-issue. That's the way I see it anyway. We need police. Yep, we do. The whole revamp of Justice Department, no quota hires or diversity hires. Yeah, it's all about the money. Got that whole World Economic Forum thing going on right now, right? That's happening in Switzerland, isn't it? Davos, Switzerland, I believe. That'll be interesting to see because they have not had, they've not had an in-person meeting now since what? Last one was 2019, I think it was. Let's see if you guys have anything else here of major consequence. You guys are talking about a lot of stuff. Cardiologists call for COVID vax suspension. So, yeah, that's a big deal. How many people are dying of heart attacks out there? You guys notice that? Does that come across your news feed? Just all of a sudden, you're like, okay, am I just imagining this? Or is this just kind of happening way out of control? Are things just going crazy? Or is it we're just facing that? What I always look for is, did they die of a stroke, heart attack? Did they die of some kind of heart failure? Because that seems to be what's commonly going on, right? And that to me is okay, what do we have going on there? How is this happening? What is going on? And so those are kind of the news stories that I've been reading. Hi from Atlantic City. Freaky Frank Booth. That's a good name. Freaky Frank. I like that. All right. Let's jump into our next story. And blood clots. Yeah, it's all interrelated, right? And you guys know I am not a huge conspiracy theorist guy, but I'm also a realist. And I'm kind of looking at some of this data and I'm looking at the CDC saying, no, maybe we're going to have to look into some of this just a scooch. And I'm kind of thinking, what really happened? What is going on? Like, something's going on, right? Because all these people just all of a sudden, this can't be coincidence. And then you've got some people that are just, flat out just dying from, ODing and whatnot. You throw all that in there and it just seems like, oh my gosh, is everybody dying? Are we all going to die? Robbie Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive died, but he died of, I think, cancer or something like that. And then we had Lisa Marie Presley. Was that a heart attack, I believe? And that one was kind of like, I can't believe Priscilla Presley outlived the king and her own daughter and her own grandson, I believe. Priscilla Presley still going. A lot of tragedy there, right? The king, what a performer. That guy could swivel those hips, couldn't he? Yeah, he was great. All right, we're going to jump on in to the next story we've got here. This is an interesting one. Karen Bass, new mayor of LA. She comes in and she does the same damn thing that a sheriff did in 2021, and he got lambasted for it. He basically was listening to business owners in Venice Beach, and he said, all right, city leadership, if you guys don't get off your ass and clear this encampment, I'm coming in with my cowboys, his deputies, and we're going to clear this thing out. We're going to clear it out. We're going to make this happen. And that was enough to get the ball started, and it just shamed the current mayor into doing something, right? Now we've got Karen Bass, new mayor, and she's clearing out 100 people from Venice Beach. And it's the greatest thing ever. This is what I campaigned on. This is my platform. I'm doing what I said I would do. Moving out 100 people from a homeless encampment, this isn't a victory. That's a start. And here's the deal. You're playing whack-a-mole. And I see it over in Seattle every day. Every day I'm over there. And I'm probably over there, I don't know. When I'm over there a lot, it's like 3 or 4 days a week. When I'm not, I'm there maybe, a handful of times a month, something like that. But right now I've been over there a bunch because I've been working on boat stuff and paddle boarding, and it's the middle of winter, and that's when you want to do a lot of paddle boarding because there's nobody else out. It's really cold. So, everybody else is up skiing. Those guys don't know what they're missing out on. But no, I'm just trying to get really good at paddle boarding because, it's something I want to work on. And more time in is better. I do wear a wetsuit, but it's still cold. Water is 46 degrees. Don't fall in. Don't recommend it. It's cold. It's very cold. So Karen Bass, she comes in and she's just all photo op, smiling, 100 people. This is optics, right? This is sheer optics for something that was just derided a year and a half ago, 2021, when the sheriff said, I'm coming in, I'm cleaning house because you guys got to do something here, because the encampment issue after the pandemic had just gotten wildly out of control. You sweep out 100 people, it's that whack-a-mole game. Like I was saying, I see it. You're just moving people from here. They're going to go over here. They're going to still continue doing their drugs. They're going to do their crazy stuff. The whole ecosystem, it just shifts around a little bit. That's all you've got going on, right? So Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is basking in the success of removing 100 people off of city streets and into temporary shelters in less than 30 days on the job. No one seems concerned with how she is having so much success in a short amount of time. Well, how long was this sweep set up? I mean, how long ago was this sweep set up? She's literally just said, this is all me. I did all this. This is what we're doing. I mean, it's just some real nonsense. So it's basically a big photo op for her, right? It's an enormous photo op. Bass campaigned on a platform of tackling the homeless crisis, pledging to get 17,000 homeless people off of the street in her first year in office, and estimated it would take 4 years to get a firm grasp on it. 17,000 off the street in her first year. All right, that would be not only a world record, that would be a record for the universe. And I am assuming there is life beyond planet Earth. That's why I'm making that statement. There is also a planet out there who's got a homeless issue. This would be more than that planet's ever done as well. I'm totally making this up, right? Although I do believe there is life beyond planet Earth, because the universe is so big. There's so many, billions and trillions of planets and other systems out there, star systems and whatnot. To believe that we're the only ones here, I think is pretty short-sighted. But she's saying, we're just gonna, put a lot of people into housing. She went a step further by declaring a state of emergency, which lasts 6 months, with the county and other local cities following her lead that the homeless crisis was not just an emergency, but a full-blown crisis. Okay, we've been in a full-blown emergency crisis here in King County. We've had, crisis mode for homelessness for like 7 years. And our problem just keeps getting worse because they're not going to the heart of the matter on so much of what's going on. You're not dealing with the people on crazy amounts of drugs. And LA, look at Skid Row. Look at Skid Row. Look at the stories coming out of Skid Row. I mean, it is not the Wild West. It is Mad Max type, just, Mohawk with your whatever boyfriend on the back of your motorcycle, and you're just going to go out and do some, whatever, marauding in the open desert in the outback of Australia. That's Mad Max stuff. And that's literally what you've got going on in a community like Skid Row. Venice Beach, I've talked about this. That's what we're talking about here, talking about taking 100 people off of Venice Beach. It was really interesting. I was watching Casey Neistat, and you probably don't care who that is, but he's a pretty famous and probably one of the best YouTubers out there. He did a thing where he put out one video a day for an entire year. And you're talking 10-minute complete YouTube video. That might not sound like a lot because I pump a couple of those out at, half an hour a pop each day. But he's putting out like all of this really crazy imagery and all these super quick little, I sit here and talk into a camera, multiple cameras, but he would do things like he'd do a time lapse, he'd do hyperlapse, he'd do zoom in, all this crazy editing, and just these fantastic videos. He moved from New York City to basically Venice Beach in California. And on one of his first videos, he had some kind of instrument in his hand because he was leaving to go on a road trip really early in the morning. Like he was driving his Tesla, and he was kind of jokingly talking about, I think he had a screwdriver or something. And you would, unless you read these news stories all day long, it wouldn't make any sense to you. And he's like, you never know who you're going to encounter out here. And he was talking about the homeless population that's psychotic in Venice Beach. And he literally carries, some kind of implement with him. And he was kind of half joking, but then you could also kind of tell, not half joking. He's a realist. He just came from New York City. He knows what it's like to defend yourself getting from point A to point B. And so Venice Beach, beautiful area. Beautiful area. So they're going to, obviously start with that because you've got the high rollers in that area. You've got multi-million-dollar homes, and then you've got massive homeless community. And you know who's covered this a ton has been German in Venice. I'll have to check in on German in Venice. That guy does, he gets the footage, and he just kind of walks around and here it is. This is what we're doing. We know that the community of Venice has suffered for a long time, Bass said. The people on the streets have been suffering, and the people who have to live or work near the encampments have been suffering. So I'm happy to say that we're able to move a number of people into housing, and this work is going to continue, said every single politician with the homeless problem in their community. We're going to keep working on it. All right, what's that going to look like? Because you might have moved a handful inside, but they're not going to make it inside. Eventually, they're going to go back outside. And then you're going to have thousands who need, either psychological help or they need drug addiction help or a combination. And they're just living out there. So how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle 17,000? That'll be interesting to watch, right? It's kind of like, all right, I'll watch this train wreck. I'll watch how this goes. So mayor of LA off to a start. Let's give her that, off to a start. But this isn't anything in particular. The fact that she's getting press for this is just kind of wild, right? So she went to Venice, where former Sheriff Alex Villanueva already showed it was possible to transition people safely from the streets and into shelter. The difference is he was villainized for stepping out of bounds, while Bass is being cheered as a hero. That drives me nuts. You got law enforcement saying, hey, we're going to enforce the laws. Oh, you're horrible and terrible. No thin blue line for you. And then you've got a mayor who just got elected saying crazy stuff. Oh, we're going to do this many people off the streets. Just no idea. I mean, just no clue, right? So here's what Villanueva said. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, said Villanueva. Too bad my call to the Board of Supervisors and the governor for an emergency declaration fell on deaf ears in 2021. So he's just basically calling out exactly what happened. We podcasted on that. We talked about that. We talked about, hey, if it takes being shamed into getting your job done, so be it. But there aren't enough resources out there for all this stuff. There aren't enough resources. There's not enough beds for 17,000 people, period. Point blank. You don't have the infrastructure to handle all the people with all of their various needs, because these people are not your average folks just down on their luck, waiting for their next break, waiting for a couple of paychecks to come in, then they'll get back on their feet and they'll get housing or they'll get a hotel again. These aren't those folks. And that's where there's this massive disconnect that I think nobody is really recognizing. Well, some people are recognizing. Reasonable people are recognizing that and have always recognized that. But until you start working on some of these more deeply rooted problems, it's not just the roof over your head, is it? That's kind of like, all right, whatever. If you want to get sober, you can figure it out. And people that are really mentally unstable, letting them live outside in a drug-filled environment is not compassion. It's just not. So we're back to, she had immediate success, talking about Mayor Bass. Within 10 short days, Bass managed to get 100 people off the streets and out of tents. Well, that was just a sweep that was planned. They had this in the works for a while. They went out and did it. Now you've got the optics. So what would be really impressive if she was able to keep Venice Beach clear for like 3 years. Yeah. Don't have the resource to do that, because once they've got Venice Beach cleaned, they're going to go elsewhere. And, when they do, those people are going right back to Venice Beach. The efforts were part of Bass's new initiative called Inside Safe. and a collective effort with partners from the nonprofit St. Joseph Center and newly elected city council member Tracy Park, Villanueva also partnered with St. Joseph Center and other partners, which resulted in more than 300 tents being removed from the boardwalk in 2021. Yeah, he cleaned house. He cleaned house, and he was literally vilified for that. People knew his name. He's like, oh, he's that horrible, horrible sheriff who's being mean to the poor people. It's like, no, he's cleaning up Venice Beach. He's cleaning up Muscle Beach. He's, making it so that people who want to go to these iconic California areas can actually enjoy them with their families instead of just having the crazy news stories. And there were crazy news stories. I remember talking about the Ben & Jerry's ice cream shop that was on Venice Beach and how they closed up. I mean, if you're closing up an ice cream shop on Venice Beach, you got some major, major issues, right? I mean, that's telling of what was going on. That was during the pandemic and you didn't have enough people walking around because everybody was supposed to be hunkered down inside their house, not talking to anybody. And, we're going down those roads, wondering why the Rona isn't spreading wildfire throughout the homeless encampments. Kind of like, that's weird. It's really strange. What's going on here? How does this happen? Yeah, right? That tent action, all that fresh air. So days before Bass's press conference, local news reporters were on the encampment cleanup trail alongside Bass and Park, where they were interviewing those who accepted assistance, some of which went on camera explaining their drug illness or their drug use. All right, here's the next section I want to get into. According to the LA Centers for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, 27% of the homeless reported substance abuse and 25% had serious mental illness. Those numbers are wildly, wildly underreported. There is no way that those numbers are true. The homeless encampments that I go by, I mean, you can literally just eyeball what's going on. Hypodermic needles on the sidewalk out in front of these encampments, that's kind of your first clue. There's a whole bunch of garbage. They're not being kept up. They're going down this road, right? They have gone down this road. There's no way 27% of the homeless reported substance abuse and 25% had serious mental illness. The 25% who reported mental illness, okay, all right. Because we don't really know what that number is by excluding the drug use, right? So you take people off the drugs, can you then identify, what mental illnesses they have? Because until you get there, so many of these drugs are causing literally psychosis in people. Some of the crazy new meth that's out there, every time I turn around, there's some kind of new crazy drug that's going on. And, one of the stories that I'm going to cover, I'm not covering it in this 4-pack of stories today, but it's, I think we've got some legislation that they're trying to hit on xylazine, which is the animal tranquilizer for large animals that's just rampaged through Philadelphia, Kensington Avenue. And it's causing everybody to do that wild nod off when, they're almost, their heads down at their ankles is bottom line. That's not a nod off. That is I don't know what that is, but those people, they're on some crazy, crazy stuff. So back to the article. Connecting them with services also incorporates the County of Los Angeles, which comes at a cost for all Angelinos. You got taxpayer money going into this. Until you get to the root cause of some of this stuff, it's not going away. You're just literally playing whack-a-mole. You're moving 100 people out. They're going to come back. They're going to go to another community. They come right back to City of Venice, camp out there. The minute the coast is clear, this is just what's happening. So to take a victory lap after 100 people on Venice Beach after it's been cleared out, how many times? Yeah, not so much. Okay, I think that is it for this one. But yeah, it's so interesting to see, how perspective changes. Oh, we've got somebody, an elected official that we brought in and not the dangerous, evil Sheriff Villanueva, right? I mean, because clearly he's just a mean old bastard for moving all those homeless people out. But now we've got a mayor who the people voted in because they liked what she said. She's moved 100 people out, and it's, let's take a bow. Things are great. It's wild how that goes, right? It's wild how that goes. To me, it's like, let the sheriff just keep going. Let him just keep cleaning clock. But now we're not going to do that because, we've got to all partner together. We've got to work together on some of this stuff. And we need to all just have compassion for one another. And so tired of that, right? All right. I want you guys to watch this. This is pretty cool. Let's go. This is just a real super quick one. This is a video that Jonathan Cho shot. I think it was yesterday. This is downtown Seattle. This is Pioneer Square, one of our most famous squares. Look at this nonsense. Yeah, just what are we even? There's some guys just walking by. It's pretty normal. Let's watch that again. What do you say? We'll just watch that again, just for kicks. All right. Guy's putting up his cardboard. He's got an enormous collection. He's got carts, cardboard, all kinds of stuff. Goods, stolen goods, tarps. Got a full-size cooler there. Bags of groceries, other people's stuff, tent, and a baby carriage. Baby carriage. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, that's Jonathan Cho, and he's basically saying Groundhog Day. And Groundhog Day is a really good way of, identifying what's going on. You've got these cities where the homeless, it's just Groundhog Day. They, clear them out, rinse, repeat, clear them out, rinse, repeat. So on your first 100, Mayor Bass down in LA, doesn't count. You put 5,000 into treatment, mental treatment, into housing. We'll talk about that. You put 1,000 into that. We'll talk about that. All right. My next story is ex-Intel official who signed Hunter Biden laptop letter admits significant portion of the emails had to be real. All right. We're going to talk about this. I've got my theories on this. I know you do too. I'm going to check some comments out here and see what we've got going on. Can't see it. Okay. Yeah, sorry about the video. The video was just German in Venice is very concerned about his mother. That's not good. So Bass is just another cog in the wheel of failure. Totally agreed. It's just not happening. So what we saw, I kind of described what we saw on the homeless encampment thing. For some reason, the screenshot is not working to capture what's on my screen. So sorry about that. It was just, more of the same. You've seen it before, but it was just so boom right there in Pioneer Square, which is kind of the epicenter of that portion of downtown Seattle. And it's also had its fair share of just some sheer chaos with the whole homeless epidemic and people robbing, businesses and people getting stabbed, people getting shot. It's there. And it's also where all the bars are and young people like to hang out. I don't go there anymore. So let's jump on into ex-Intel official who signed Hunter Biden laptop letter, admits significant portion of emails had to be real. Douglas Wise was among the signatories who pushed the Russian disinformation narrative. So here's what I think is going on before we truly get on into it. I think you've got a situation where the Republicans are going to do a little look-see on some major investigations, the laptop being one of them. So where we had 51 former Intel officials sign this big letter stating, well, this looks a lot like Russian disinfo. We don't know if it is or not, but don't believe anything you saw on the laptop. Well, we're getting to the point now, and probably enough information is flowing in Congress that people are aware of. We're going to have some people that are going to be, they're going to be asked to describe, for Congress exactly what their position was and why they signed this letter and why they put this letter out from, all these former defense officials stating that this is basically Russian disinfo. So now you've got one guy, Douglas Wise, who is saying, well, we said it was Russian disinfo because we knew a portion of the emails on the laptop had to be real. But at the time, they basically said, they're all Russian disinfo. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to it. So you are slowly seeing the creep towards, oh, we knew it was all real. We knew for a fact it was all real. And the media just stopped that story in its tracks, right? Some of my stuff included. My stuff was, it wasn't, I didn't have links, hyperlinks that were blocked, but I did have storylines that were deemed, nobody wants to advertise on this. Or I did have storylines that are like, yeah, we're not really promoting this right now. We're not promoting this topic right now. Had that stuff happen. And it was a way of basically censoring information so that content didn't get out there. And to me, that had a major impact on the election. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of this article. So, yeah, we've got some, you're going to probably have some hearings. And you're going to have some of this stuff come up. And so now you've got one of these guys who maybe is going to be in the hot seat in some of these hearings. And he's going to say, the FBI had the laptop July of 2019, or was it December of 2019? They had a full year to look at it before the elections. And you guys, right before the elections, stated that you thought it was Russian disinfo. What's the dealio? And the guy's going to go, well, we said it was Russian disinfo because we knew some of it was correct. But, what's really on there, we can't have the American public believing that because, one of the things the FBI came right out and said was that they didn't want to be responsible for majorly impacting 2 elections in a row. So if you remember, with Hillary Clinton and her email servers, that was a big FBI related deal, right? She's got a private email server. Can't have that. Well, the FBI was just like, well, let's take that laptop and we're just going to bury that. And that to me, that on top of, this letter that went out that said Russian disinfo, Russian misinformation, that to me, that had an impact on the election for sure by not disclosing that. So FBI, one way or the other, they're impacting this, right? So kind of depending on which side of the aisle you believe, whether you believe in the whole voter fraud thing, I am of the idea that, what happened with this laptop did impact the election for sure. The timing of it, especially. One of the signatories from the now discredited open letter attempting to discredit the findings from the Hunter Biden laptop made a stunning admission more than 2 years after it surfaced in the public eye. Because what's happened is that we've just moved past it, right? Guy got elected. We're all good. Douglas Wise, a former Defense Intelligence Agency deputy director and former senior CIA operations officer, was among the over 50 former intel officials who claimed that the content of the laptop, first reported by the New York Post in October of 2020, has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Now, they didn't come right out and say that it was Russian disinfo, did they? I podcasted this very specifically. They danced around what it was. They didn't identify it directly because they knew damn well that it was probably a laptop that Hunter Biden in his drug-induced state left at a repair shop. That repair shop, guy just freaked out and now he gave it to, who did he give it to? Rudy Giuliani? That whole sequence thing. And then it became the laptop from hell from Miranda. I forget her last name. But yeah, so this is where we sit. This whole thing to me is just straight up politics, right? So, but in an interview with the Australian published Sunday, Wise, the Australian being the publication, Wise now admits most of what was found on the reported emails had to be based in reality. All right. So which one was it? Was it reality or was it fake? You got to pick one because it can't be both. Now we're saying, well, of course we knew it was real because if it was Russian disinfo, then the stuff on there had to be real. Is this just absolute doublespeak? Seems that way to me, right? It's one or the other. It's true or it's not, right? Stuff on the laptop is good or it's Russian disinfo. But now we're saying, well, it's got some truth to it. The only way it could have been Russian disinfo is that if it was true, is literally what this guy is saying. It's like, how's that work? I don't know. All of us, keep going here. All of us figured that a significant portion of that content had to be real to make any Russian disinformation credible. But the whole issue is that you were telling us it was Russian disinfo to discredit it. That's okay. 2 years have gone by. We're all thinking something else. Nobody's really talking about the laptop anymore, are they? No, people are. Yeah, people are. And we're going to hear some interesting stuff on that. Have you guys been following the Twitter files at all? I mean, the Twitter files that Elon Musk is leaking. I mean, there have been so many of them that I'm just kind of overwhelmed. I'm kind of like at that point where I'm like, okay, there's a lot of information there. Could somebody please just summarize all this stuff and get back to me? Could you give me the Reader's Digest version of it? I know that sounds horrible because I know that so much of this stuff is truly important. But it's like, okay, what are we going to do with all this? Are we going to have congressional hearing after congressional hearing? Right now, I'm literally kind of tired of hearing Biden and his excuses for his files. Well, they're locked up in my garage with my vet. And you're like, okay, but your house didn't get raided by the FBI and Trump's did. And you guys both had files at home. So, Trump didn't, Trump hasn't been well treated by the government at all, right? I mean, he's had so many different things where they've just gone up his backside. So for him to say, yeah, no go on the, you guys are going to have to subpoena that stuff. I don't blame him. He's basically got he's got files from when he was, in office. And to me, this stuff is just like, you guys work this out. So whatever you got going on. But the inequality is what I'm saying. The way they treated Trump with the way they treated Biden. I mean, did they go through Biden's wife's panty drawer? I don't think so. They went through Trump's. That's interesting, isn't it? Literally went through her underwear drawer. Well, there might be some secrets in here. You never know. Yeah. Wild stuff. Crazy. All right, let's keep going here. Okay. Have you seen the meme where you got Hunter Biden like in his underwear? You got the backdrop of the Corvette and the files, and he's saying just some ridiculous thing. So many jokes to be had there. So the open letter, first published by Politico, was widely cited by Democrats and members of the legacy media to downplay the findings from Hunter Biden laptop, which was largely being taken seriously solely in conservative media. So many outlets we had one outlet, I forget who it was, but just like last summer said, we think that the laptop is real. And the majority of them, it took over a year to finally kind of come back around and go, you know what, maybe that laptop was real. We are all individuals here's the excuse, right? Here's the massive excuse. We are all individuals who devoted significant portions of our lives to national security. Yada, 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 yada. We're also individuals who see Russia as one of our nation's primary adversaries. The ex-Intel officials began. All of us have an understanding of the wide range of Russian overt and covert activities that undermine U.S. national security, with some of us knowing, perhaps most important, with some of us knowing Russian behavior intimately as we work to defend our nation against it for a career. Perhaps more important, each of us believes deeply that American citizens should determine the outcome of elections, not foreign governments. That all being said, that is fine. That's a standalone sentence, paragraph there, right? String together a bunch of sentences, you get a paragraph. I'm good at this English thing. That all being said is great, but that just flat wasn't the case. It wasn't Russian disinfo, was it? No, it wasn't. It's for all these reasons that we write to say that the arrival on the U.S. political scene of the emails purportedly belonging to Vice President Biden's son Hunter much of it related to his time serving on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma, has all the classic earmarks of a Russian disinfo operation, they wrote. It's got the classic earmarks. So they blew it off, and the American public went, Russian disinfo. Yep, we knew it. We knew it. Vote for Biden. Now, there's been a ton of statistics out there where people have said, well, if I was aware of that it was true, that, the Biden family is basically selling power for money, political influence for money, maybe I'd vote for the other guy. I don't know. But I do know that a certain percentage of votes would have been impacted. Would the election gone a different direction? Who knows? We'll never know. Maybe you can run statistics. I've seen a bunch of people saying, no, had they known, we've done a poll where it says this many people would have changed their vote for this. You're like, okay, yeah, all right. But reality is, would they really have changed their vote over knowing Hunter Biden's drug-addicted son was out doing all this stuff? Maybe. I think people just want their guy. And if your guy's Democrat, got a D in front of his name, that's your guy and that's who you vote for, no matter what he does. And if your guy's got an R in front of his name, I think you go down that road, no matter what he does. Look at that guy with the R in front of his name that just basically made up, his educational history, his work history. I love the articles where they say he never entirely worked for that company. He never worked for them at all. He didn't get that degree that he claimed. People still voted him in an office nowadays, and he's taken office. I think that guy's going to make it through. Wild stuff, right? So, at the end of their letter, which was published just days after the New York Post first published its bombshell reporting, the ex-Intel officials acknowledged, we do not know whether these press reports are accurate. So they said, we don't know, and it sounds like Russian disinfo. So, the damage is done. Among the signatories were outspoken Trump critics, John Brennan, James Clapper, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, Jeremy Bash, many of whom can be found on MSNBC and CNN. How is CNN doing? How are things going at CNN? I have heard that they're going to call in possibly Bill Maher, Trevor Noah. Sorry. I don't watch him enough to know his first name from last name. And who was the other one? Another late night guy. They're talking about bringing those people in to do their 10 o'clock segment because CNN is just shuffling things around incredibly. They've got no continuity. Their shows are just, they're lacking. So Politico, which first reported on the open letter, was also the first legacy media outlet to verify the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop in September of 2021, almost a full year after this issue took place, because this was in October when this story got crushed, October of 2020, right? In 2022, the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC News, CNN, and CBS News followed suit and verified the laptop, which they all dismissed during the 2020 presidential election because it had a lot of stuff on there that wasn't good for their guy with the D in front. Many of the former President Trump's defenders allege the media and big tech suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story was enough to sway the election in favor of his father. I believe that to be true. Whether it swayed it enough to have a different outcome, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. But did it sway enough to have an impact? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember talking to one of my cousins. I'm like, hey, this laptop story is going to blow up. And my cousin said, is it? Or does it just, do people just ignore it? Does it get buried somehow? We literally had that conversation like October 20, somewhere right in there. Like I was going to podcast it the next day. And we're all watching that election very, very closely because we knew the margin was thin. We knew that it was super, super close. And man, when I saw this story come out and they're like, well, it's got the earmarks of a Russian disinfo campaign. They didn't even say they thought it was Russian disinfo. They said it had the earmarks. It looks a lot like that. Well, what else looks like Russian disinfo that isn't necessarily Russian disinfo? They didn't really say. They didn't really come right out and talk about it. And they're just like, it's all signed their name to the letter. Then, you know, how many of these guys have come back out and stated something different? I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't seen a lot of them coming back on CNN going, you know what? That whole Russian disinfo thing, man, we blew it there. That really wasn't Russian disinfo. Unfortunately, that was just Hunter Biden, you know, cracked out with prostitutes, smoking his crack pipe, doing his crazy stuff, lining up M&Ms on his, or was it M&Ms or Skittles on his, you know what, taking pictures of it. Let me Snapchat that to you right there. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you do when you're close to 50 years old, when you are on drugs. Because otherwise you're like, let's see, at the time, was he the vice president's son? I believe he was the vice president's son, not president's son, when he was doing a lot of meth. Blew out all his teeth. Yeah, he's got all those veneers, drug addicts. But I mean, he would do the video on that laptop of him doing just some crazy stuff. And everybody's, that's Russian disinfo. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Vote for our guy. It'll all work out. And it did, if you've, following the guys with the D's in front of their name. All right, that's it for me on this story. I'm going to spend a little bit of time seeing what you guys are talking about here on the chat. So I'm going to scooch over here and we'll see what we've got. Okay. When Sean Reynolds says that's wild, it always makes me laugh. That's funny. My kids mention that as well. They're like, hey, Dad, say that. And I will. And they're like, ah. It's kind of funny. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding on what's for dinner. That's funny. That's funny. Nothing will come of it, just like the Twitter files. That is kind of, the Corvette files kept in the spare tire. That's kind of what I am thinking, is that nothing major will come from this. That's my bottom thought, is nothing's going to come from these intel files that Trump has. Nothing's going to come from these intel files that Biden has. Nothing's going to come from the laptop. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. How deep are we going to go there? I don't see that happening. I do see them maybe using that as a tool to get Biden not to run again. But then the big question would be, who do they run? Right? Who do they run? I don't know. Trump's already said he's going to run. Does DeSantis run? I think DeSantis runs. And then, we need to figure that one out, right? But who do the Democrats run? Yeah, don't forget 10% for the big guy. How do we work around that one, Tall Walls? How do you get do we just ignore that? Well, yeah, the big guy. It could be anybody. I could just be a big guy. I have one of my good friends, Dan. He's a bar owner. He refers to me as the big guy. And I am 6'1" and change. Used to be, I was 6'2" and a little bit more in high school, but life and compression and, my spine, I'm just shorter now. My friend he's like 6'7". And so there's always somebody bigger, is my point, right? So who is the big guy? 10% for the big guy. That one, when you've got a business partner basically stating, Tony Bobulinski stating, the big guy is senior, and then you're kind of like, all right, how do we work around that one? What, how do we get there for all that? Don't know. What else? Yeah, DeSantis. Talking about DeSantis. Okay, I'm going to go back up and see what else we've got here. Somebody's putting a bunch of nonsense into this. Gavin Newsom's Pelosi's relative on list. Is that right? I don't know all the people that are involved. It's crazy, though. Where is my cursor? Troll. Yep. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this for a second. Hunter states $50K per month rent at the Corvette house what properties rent for $50K a month? And he was claiming that was for a bedroom. Now, some people are stating that is a way to launder money. Maybe it is, because he's got to be able to get that money. He was getting, what, 83 grand from Burisma? $1 million for a year, right? 83 grand a month. He's got to be able to funnel that back to the big guy somehow, right? Without there being a paper trail. 50 grand a month for rent? Yeah. I don't know of a single room anywhere that rents for 50 grand a month. And I don't think he was living in the home at the time. He was just claiming that. So yeah, that was an interesting one from that standpoint. But is it illegal? All right. Funneling money to somebody illegal is illegal, but whether or not they'll be able to stick that to him, I don't really know. He has a really big laundry room, but he can make up for it with garage sales. Okay. All right. Hunter can always do another art. What happened? How are we doing, Jeff, by the way? What happened with Hunter's art career? Remember, he had all his paintings, and then they were putting up a firewall in between Hunter and the people that were going to be buying his paintings. Did he sell a single painting? Was he able to sell anything? Because you know what that was? All of a sudden, spotlights on Hunter and on Senior, because Dad's become president. He doesn't have an income source. He's been doing all these shady business deals for so long. He doesn't have an income source, a legit income source. So now he's going to take up painting. And I'm no art critic, but I got to say, the one painting I saw of his, I'm like, that's not terrible. It's not horrible. Would I pay $500,000 for it? No. Would I pay $500,000 for any painting? No, not at all. No, that's just not my thing. I don't care enough about art. Well, it's really rare, Sean. Yeah. All right. Don't care. Just don't care. It's like, I think right now I have a couple of pictures that I've taken up in my house. I have no art. You know why? Because when you move out, it's easier to move. Just less stuff. Tyler Durden, evolve, have less stuff. You don't need all that stuff. Oh, I've got that picture up there. Pay $200 for that. Now it's worth $750, even though I'm never going to sell it. And I got that one from that person, and they said it was really cool. I was a really good artist, and really like that one. That's not my style. I just don't want any of that stuff. And I'd rather have an enormous big screen on my TV and a really comfy couch that I can sit there and watch YouTube on. That makes me happy. So putting stuff on the walls. Yeah. Money laundering. That's what I'm getting at, is that's the illegal part. So you got to be able to take that 83, whatever grand it is a month that you're getting, and funnel that back into the family. Cause Hunter Biden was, has bitched about having to pay his dad half of his income or whatever it was. So, in what world does your son, who has gone to law school, come out, put these deals together based on your influence as the vice president, and then you got all this money coming in and paying all these bills and commingling funds? That'll be the real question, whether that is money laundering or not. And I believe the FBI is working on that right now. And I believe the IRS is. That's why this extra 50 grand a month for the bedroom came out, because they're working on tax issues, right? And this is after Hunter Biden had a $2 million tax bill. Somebody loaned him a little. Here you go. There's no 10% for the big guy in the back end of that one, because they're literally loaning him money. Hunter's got to pay it back. Well, is he going to pay it back with the proceeds from his art? I don't know. So many questions, so few answers, right? It's just, does any of this matter? Does any of this matter? I'm inclined to say, here, I'm going to give my odds. 77.8% says no, doesn't matter. Business as usual. Keep going down these roads. Maybe Hunter gets a slap on the hand. Maybe Biden doesn't run for re-election. Something along those lines. I think that's what you're looking at, because this last boxes of files coming out of Biden's place, doesn't that just strike you as weird? all of a sudden we've got the exact same damn issue. I mean, did they tell Biden, hey, by the way, you're not running again. We're going to have you take the fall on these files. We're just going to go down that road and you're going to bow out gracefully because you're damn near 81, something like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being 81, but running the country or, running the country, so to speak, whatever it is that he's doing. If the IRS would be on me in a heartbeat if I rented my daughter a room for $50,000 a month. Yeah. You know what? Do you think the average citizen would probably get flagged for even a house for $50,000 a month? How many homes? How about that home that Robert De Niro was renting where the female thief broke into his house and was rummaging through his presents underneath his Christmas tree while he was upstairs sleeping with his daughter, who's 50 something, 60 something. I don't know. Cause he's like 80 something. Right. And, he was renting that place in New York City. I think it was $67,000 a month, but that's big town home, right? That is the absurd end of real estate. A home in wherever it was, wherever in Delaware, that the Bidens do their whole home thing. You ain't renting a room in that house for $50,000 a month. That's just not, he can't even walk right. Yeah. That's true. It's true. I often wonder who is actually running our country. Looks like lizard privilege. Yep. Agreed. Yep. They work together, period. They do. Yeah. They've worked together very well. Will we, have some of the father-son thing unveiled? You'll have a little scooch of it unveiled, but for the vast majority, I think, the Bidens they've done their thing. He'll go this last year, whatever he has left on his presidency, a couple of years on his presidency, he will have served his purpose, and then he will gracefully be put out to pasture. And Hunter Biden, who knows? He'll be selling art for who knows? I don't know. Yeah, you guys have theories on who runs the world. We kind of know it's not who we're told it is, but all that stuff. All right. I got to go eat some lunch. So thank you all for joining. Thanks for all for being here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this a bunch. I've also got a live stream that if you're interested in kind of what I'm doing, it's a GoPro up on the wall. And some of you have already seen it, but a bunch of you bitched about the audio being terrible, which we recognize that was true. Now I've got a mic here. This is the receiver here. This is a transceiver, and I don't know. But we've got a mic up on our, it's kind of a behind the scenes look. You actually can see the backside of all the cameras. We're going to have that going, and it just kind of runs. But we've got good audio on it now. So if you want to take a look at that and just kind of see what I'm doing and see what's going on, we're going to be doing a lot of live streams. Somebody said, hey, you're the first news guy to do a behind the scenes live stream of what you're actually doing, because what I do is I record my segments. So today's segments will be brought up into 4 different storylines. Those will be cut up. But oftentimes what I'll do is I'll read a story and I'll say, cut. I'll say, cut, go with this. You'll be able to see all of that. If you want to follow those live streams, you can kind of see me just make an ass out of myself and how bad I really am and how much editing makes this go. As in, any news story, any of the guys that you watch elsewhere, they just butcher segment after segment after segment. And some genius in the back who's just head down with headphones is just editing like a madman because he's like, oh, we can't have that in there. This is terrible. But I'm going to let you watch me just make an ass out of myself because, that seems reasonable. All right. Thank you all for being here. Thanks so much for supporting and just being part of this channel. We are growing. We're growing slowly but surely. And that's where you want to be. So, and we're also trying out a bunch of stuff like the live stream here, the live stream we got going on here. Yeah. You do enough live streams, you're out there. All right. That's what we're accomplishing. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for supporting. Hey, also every morning at 9 my time, I am typically on the premiere, meaning we've got a new video coming out at 9 a.m. my time on Monday through Friday. I try and be there as best I can. So if you want to chat with me there, I'm there making smart ass comments about, the guy that we're watching. Me is basically just, what's that guy doing? We don't even know. All right. Thanks again. I'm going to end this live stream. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. I tried to and I couldn't. Is it still going? Can you go? All right.